Hello, and welcome back to Chunking to Fluency, your go-to place for learning English naturally, one chunk at a time. In today's lesson, we'll be working with 25 brand new, slow English sentences, all designed for intermediate-level learners. Inside each sentence, you'll find useful phrases and expressions, or chunks, that really native speakers use every day. Your job? Just listen closely and shadow what you hear. That means repeating each phrase out loud. First with the speaker, then by yourself at a comfortable, slow pace. This method will help you build fluency, confidence, and automatic recall. So get ready to speak, repeat, and improve, one chunk at a time. Let's begin. Okay, good day everyone. First one up. Primeiro em português, revisar cuidadosamente. Now in English, to carefully review. Again, to carefully review. We use this chunk phrase when we want to make sure something is okay, or maybe to double-check something for accuracy, like the final repairs on a vehicle or coding of a computer program. It can be something like a safety measure, used in order to avoid future problems. Let's use an example sentence. Primeiro, em português, o gerente pediu que todos os funcionários revisassem cuidadosamente os relatórios. And now, in English, the manager asked all employees to carefully review the reports. One more time. The manager asked all employees to carefully review the reports.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Primeiro em português, o presente de aniversário. And now in English, the birthday gift. And once more, the birthday gift.
Okay, I guess you could say this one is my favorite chunk phrase on today's list. Who doesn't like birthday gifts, right? Let's see it in a sentence. Você já escolheu o presente de aniversário da sua mãe? Now, in English, have you picked out your mother's birthday gift yet? And once again, have you picked out your mother's birthday gift yet?
The next chunk is a good one to use during the winter time. It's about staying warm. Here it is in Portuguese. Casaco mais quente. And English, a warmer coat. Again, a warmer coat. And now a good example sentence. Primeiro em português.
Se eu fosse você, levaria casaco mais quente.
And in English, if I were you, I'd take a warmer coat. If I were you, I'd take a warmer coat. A warmer coat would certainly make the cold weather more bearable, don't you think?
Next one, an important chunk to remember, and it describes the importance of a call that you are waiting for. Here it is, em português, uma ligação importante. Now in English, an important call. Once more, an important call. Great! Now let's see it in action. Estou esperando uma ligação importante, então não posso sair agora. English. I'm waiting for an important call, so I can't leave right now. I'm waiting for an important call, so I can't leave right now.
Next on the list is quando você estiver pronto. Agora, em inglês, when you're ready. Once more, when you're ready. This is a handy phrase to use while waiting on or for someone. It lets another person know that you are patiently waiting for them. Be careful with this one because it could be misunderstood if you use the wrong tone of voice. Here's a good example of this chunk in its common use. Português. Quando você estiver pronto, podemos começar a reunião. Now, English. When you're ready, we can start the meeting. When you're ready, we can start the meeting.
Here's a good one. Em português, muito barulho. Now, in English, there's too much noise. Again, there's too much noise. Everyone has been at a place where there was just too much noise, right? Too much noise is very difficult to put up with, and it's the best way to ruin a good night's sleep or a nice movie. It's difficult to practice patience when there is too much noise. Here it is in an example sentence. Português. Ela não consegue se concentrar quando há muito barulho ao redor. E agora, inglês. She can't concentrate when there's too much noise around. Outra vez. She can't concentrate when there's too much noise around.
Moving right along, next up is estava tão lotado. Em inglês seria it was so crowded. It was so crowded. This is a phrase that you would use at a busy place, like a bar, a soccer game, or maybe a sold-out concert. It implies that there's too many people, so many that it exceeds the limitations of personal comfort. In the US, we often use a funny idiom like, it was like sardines in there. It likens the crowd to a can of sardines. Funny, right? In a common sentence, it would sound like this. Português. O restaurante estava tão lotado que tivemos que esperar por uma mesa. Now in English, the restaurant was so crowded that we had to wait for a table. Once more, the restaurant was so crowded that we had to wait for a table.
Like the movies? Then this one's for you. Primeiro em português. Acabou de estrear. Now in English. It just premiered. It just premiered. This chunk describes the release of a new movie. It is often used by people who have been waiting to see a movie that has been hyped up in commercials as a movie trailer, like the next Avengers or Mission Impossible movie. Let's look at this chunk in an example sentence. Português. Você viu aquele filme novo que acabou de estrear nos cinemas? And again, in English, did you see that new movie that just premiered in theaters? Did you see that new movie that just premiered in theaters?
Next up is, em português, superar esse medo. English, to overcome that fear. To overcome that fear. This phrase is often used when we want to talk about conquering something scary. Something so scary that we have had to make it a point to overcome it. Fears like high altitudes, roller coasters, or flying in an airplane are among the most commonly conquered fears by people who were once terrified at the very thought of experiencing them. Let's look at this chunk in an example sentence. Primeiro em português. Ele não gosta de falar em público, mas está tentando superar esse medo. And in English, he doesn't like speaking in public, but he's trying to overcome that fear. And once more, he doesn't like speaking in public, but he's trying to overcome that fear.
And the next chunk phrase is primeiro em português, vou passar no, and in English, I'll stop by thee. I'll stop by thee. This is a very common chunk phrase. It's used when we want to say that we are going to make a pit stop, which is just an English way of saying that we won't be staying long. It's very commonly used when we want to say that we are going to go to the grocery store, the post office, the dry cleaners, or any other place before arriving home. It can also be used to say that we are going to swing by someone's house for a brief visit. Here it is in a commonly used sentence. Português, vou passar no supermercado depois do trabalho para comprar pão. And in English, I'll stop by the supermarket after work to buy some bread. Once again, I'll stop by the supermarket after work to buy some bread.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. Here's a good one. Primeiro em português, ficar impressionado. And in English, to be impressed. Again, to be impressed. This is how we express being affected by something spectacular, usually in a positive way. We normally say it like, very impressive, or I'm impressed, or various other ways. But today, we'll say it like this. First, in Portuguese. Eles ficaram impressionados com a apresentação e fizeram várias perguntas. And now in English, they were impressed with the presentation and asked several questions. Once more, they were impressed with the presentation and asked several questions.
The next chunk phrase on the list is o ar-condicionado não funciona. In English, the air conditioning don't work. Once more, the air conditioning don't work. I think everybody hates this phrase, but it's necessary to understand it, especially in South American countries like Brazil, where the heat and humidity can reach extreme highs. Muito sufocante, né? Aqui está o bloco em uma sentença. O quarto do hotel era confortável, mas o ar-condicionado não funcionava. Em inglês seria: a hotel room was comfortable, but the air conditioning didn't work. The hotel room was comfortable, but the air conditioning didn't work.
The next phrase is a very useful one. Here it is in Portuguese. Estar prestes a. In English, that would be to be about to. Again, to be about to. Why is this chunk so useful? Because it lets us express what we are at the point of doing, saying, etc. We can say, I'm about to go fishing. I'm about to say something awful. Or, I'm about to bake a cake. It's very handy because it speaks of our intention in the very near future. In the following sentence, it is used in the imperfect indicative tense, expressed to indicate what one was about to do. Português, ele estava prestes a sair quando começou a chover forte. And now in English. He was about to leave when it started to rain heavily. Once more, he was about to leave when it started to rain heavily.
And for those that prefer to keep things calm, this one's for you. Português para evitar multidões. Okay, now in English, to avoid crowds. Once again, to avoid crowds. This one is quite obvious, isn't it? You just don't feel like having a lot of human contact at the moment, or you just want things to go smoothly because you're just in that mood right now. No matter what the reason is, less is better at this moment. In this example sentence, it's all about having a nice quiet journey. Here it is in Portuguese. Nós preferimos viajar durante a semana para evitar multidões. Now let's hear it in English. We prefer to travel during the week to avoid crowds. One more time. We prefer to travel during the week to avoid crowds.
And moving on to the next one. Here we go. Português. Atualizar seu cadastro. And in English, to update your registration. Again, to update your registration. There are some places, maybe a government body, an online website, or maybe a private group, that may require you to keep your information on file to be up to date. Perhaps once a year, once every 2 years, or in the case of a driver's license, usually 4 years. It's up to the terms that you have agreed to with that organization. Here it is in a commonly used sentence. Primeiro em português. Você precisa atualizar seu cadastro para continuar usando o serviço. In English, you need to update your registration in order to keep using the service. Once more, you need to update your registration in order to keep using the service.
Another handy chunk for you. Primeiro em português, no meio de. Now in English, in the middle of. Once more, in the middle of. We often use this chunk phrase when we want to express what we are currently involved with, such as in the middle of an important meeting, or maybe you want to use it when referring to the location of something, such as in the middle of the street. No matter how you choose to use this handy little phrase, you have to admit it's quite useful. Now let's hear it in a sentence. Português. Meu computador travou no meio de uma reunião importante. And in English, my computer froze in the middle of an important meeting. Once more, my computer froze in the middle of an important meeting.
And here comes another one, short, sweet, and super helpful. Português explicou o exercício. Now in English, explain the exercise. One more time, explain the exercise. This one's great for any classroom context. When teachers break things down for you and give you those golden examples, that's when they explain the exercise. Let's hear it in action. Português. A professora explicou o exercício com muitos exemplos fáceis de entender. English. The teacher explained the exercise with lots of easy-to-understand examples. Once more, the teacher explained the exercise with lots of easy-to-understand examples.
Here comes one of those phrases that makes you sound instantly fluent. Primeiro em português, consegue se comunicar bem. And in English, can communicate well. Again, can communicate well. Fluency isn't just about big words, it's about connection. If someone isn't fluent yet but still manages to get the point across, yep, in my opinion, they can communicate well. Let's hear an example. Português. Embora ele não seja fluente, consegue se comunicar bem em inglês. English. Although he's not fluent, he can communicate well in English. Repeat. Although he's not fluent, he can communicate well in English.
Let's keep rolling with a super common chunk. Português, estar pensando em. Now in English, to be thinking about. Once again, to be thinking about. It could be pizza, a vacation, a deep life decision. This chunk fits anywhere. In this case, barbecue. Let's hear it. Português. Estamos pensando em fazer churrasco no próximo fim de semana. English. We're thinking about having a barbecue next weekend. Once more. We're thinking about having a barbecue next weekend.
Next one is super common in both casual and business English. Português. Ter a chance de. In English, to have the chance to. One more time. To have the chance to. You can use this chunk to talk about opportunities you've had or missed. It's simple and really useful. We use this chunk when we want to talk about the prospects of possibly being able to do, say, or even receive something. You can also use it to talk about the chance to go somewhere. There are way too many uses for this chunk phrase to mention here, but it's very easy to get the hang of it once you start using it in conversation. Now listen to it being used in its preterite form. Português, você já teve a chance de visitar o novo shopping? English, have you had the chance to visit the new mall? Have you had the chance to visit the new mall?
Okay, this next one is great when you finally made it to your destination after a very long trip. Português, finalmente chegar ao. In English, to finally arrive at. Again, to finally arrive at. This one's dramatic. You've been driving for hours, stuck in traffic, maybe some bad directions, and then freedom. You've arrived. We use this when we have long anticipated arriving at our destination, often after a bit of boredom or impatience. A good example sentence would be: Português, depois de horas dirigindo, eles finalmente chegaram ao hotel. English, after hours of driving, they finally arrived at the hotel. After hours of driving, they finally arrived at the hotel.
All right, time to unlock another useful one. Ready? Português, seguir as instruções corretamente. And in English, to follow the instructions correctly. Again, to follow the instructions correctly. This is the kind of phrase you hear in user manuals or right before someone ignores the instructions and breaks everything. Don't be that person. To follow instructions means to obey good advice. Advice that is usually printed in manuals, or it could be a direct order from your boss, or maybe even a police officer. Like I said, don't be that person. Listen to its proper use in this example. Português. Se você seguir as instruções corretamente, não terá problemas. English. If you follow the instructions correctly, you won't have any problems. And once more, if you follow the instructions correctly, you won't have any problems.
Here's one for job changers, schedule hackers, and freedom lovers. Português, horário mais flexível. And in English, a more flexible schedule. Once again, a more flexible schedule. Whether you're tired of the 9 to 5 or just want to sleep in on Tuesdays, this is your chunk. It's just a simple chunk phrase that expresses the desire to have more freedom in a person's plans. Flexibility is always a good thing when it comes to a person's schedule. Let's hear its use in the following sentence. Português, ele trocou de emprego porque queria horário mais flexível. English, he changed jobs because he wanted a more flexible schedule. And once more, he changed jobs because he wanted a more flexible schedule.
This next chunk is the language of meetings, boardrooms, and indecision. Português, tomar uma decisão. And in English, to make a decision. And again, to make a decision. It doesn't have to be life-changing. Sometimes it's just deciding what's for dinner. Still counts, right? To make a decision is a chunk phrase that we use when something is still up in the air. By the way, up in the air is just a simple idiom that we use to say that something is still undecided. Hear it in proper use in the following sentence. Português. Nós discutimos a proposta, mas ainda não tomamos uma decisão. English, we discussed the proposal, but we haven't made a decision yet. One more time. We discussed the proposal, but we haven't made a decision yet.
Next up, the glamorous life of business travel. Português, viajar a trabalho. And in English, to travel for work. One more time, to travel for work. airport coffee, hotel pillows, and time zone confusion, all the makings of a working traveler's routine. This is used when travel is obligatory for a worker to finish his or her job. It has its benefits, but can be hard on family life. Some people love this type of job. Others, not so much. A good example of this chunking use would be Português. Ela viaja a trabalho com frequência e já conhece vários países. Now English. She travels for work often and already knows several countries. Once again, she travels for work often and already knows several countries.
We hope you learned something new today with these English chunks and that you're feeling more confident with each phrase you practice. Thanks so much for listening and for being a part of the Chunking to Fluency community. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who's also learning English. And of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell icon so you never miss a chance to increase your fluency. See you in the next lesson. Be blessed.